complete veto power. And this is a board that I've used to help me make life decisions. That when I've had a significant job opportunity that I'm considering, when I've been looking at ministry opportunities, when I've been considering, you know, even in terms of our family and God leading us in terms of where we might live or how many children we're going to have, I really have sought advice from this board to really be seeking what God wants for me. And I believe that if we seek wisdom from others who are wise people, God will give it. A second lesson I've learned in trying to have a career for Christ is to really listen to your heart. That God is going to give you particular desires in terms of your work. That I really believe God wants you to enjoy your job. Not that you're going to enjoy it every day or in every way, but I believe that God has given us the capacity to enjoy the work that He calls us to do. And if you're going through long stretches where you really hate your job, then you really need to be seeking God. Is this really what you want to be doing? And there may be a reason that God wants you to be doing that for a period of time. But over the long term, I believe that with the work that God calls us to is going to be enjoyable and is going to fit with the desires He's given us. Thirdly, the importance of setting priorities, keeping your focus. For many years now, I've had a personal mission statement. I regularly review my wedding vows. I have accountability questions. I've been part of different men's groups. I believe that you need to have a focus in terms of, and again, this may sound, you know, I don't know maybe how it sounds, but there are certain decisions we have to make every day. I make a decision every day that I'm going to follow Christ. You never go on automatic pilot. You always have to keep making. I make a decision every day to stay married to my wife and to keep loving her with the love of Christ. I mean, that's a conscious choice. You know, I'm making a decision every day that I'm going to be a father to my sons, and I'm going to mentor them and help them to grow up to be godly men. That's a conscious choice. And all of us each day have to make conscious choices. I make a conscious choice that I'm going to be a godly employee at the Northern Trust Company. And it's just important for us to keep our priorities where they need to be. A fourth lesson along the way is just there are different seasons of life in ministry. There have been times when my personal life and ministry life have been extremely busy. My work life has not been as much of a focus. There have been other seasons, you know, where work has been more of a focus, and it still needs to be within balance and not out of balance with the rest of your life. But you will go through ebbs and flows, and you need to listen to God's voice in the midst of that. Fifth, I've already talked about this, you know, understanding your gifts. It's an evolving process. Sixth, cultivate contentment and stability. And I alluded to this earlier. I think we do live in an instant gratification society where people sort of automatically assume that if we're not happy today, it means I've got to change something in my external environment, and whether it's a different job or a different boyfriend or a different girlfriend or a different class or whatever it is. And I believe that God often calls us just to be stable, to be where He's planted us for a period of time. And one of my inspirations for this, I made a reference here to St. Bernard, because it isn't new to be seeking greener grass someplace else. Back in the 1400s, there were a number of monasteries where monks kept moving around to different monasteries that they thought were sort of better monasteries than the monasteries that they were part of. And St. Bernard added another vow to what the monks had to take in addition to their vows of poverty and chastity and some of the other vows that they had, obedience, other vows that they would take. He had to take a vow of stability. That they would be stable where they were until God clearly called them someplace else. And again, I'm not saying that God calls everybody to work for the same company for 20 years, like I have. I've come very close to leaving my company several times, but I've really sought God each time and said, Lord, are you done with me here? You have other plans for me. Rather than just assuming that because some other company is going to give me a lot of money or a lot of responsibility, that therefore I should take that offer. Seventh, to see God in the circumstances. God will open and close doors. Eighth, that God doesn't waste your past training or experience, that whatever you learn, God will find a way to use it. And I feel like my time is running out, so I won't go into depth here, but I believe that God uses all of who you are wherever He puts you. Ninth, I've already talked about this, letting God lead every day and how He speaks to you. And the 10th one here is an important one, that you can put up with a lot if you have a good manager and a good company. When I first started working at the Northern Trust Company, I did not have any interest in being a space planning coordinator, but they didn't have any openings in what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really qualified at that time for what I wanted to do. But I knew they were a good company, and I knew that they had good training programs, and I knew that there would probably be opportunities to do the things that God had gifted me to do if I was willing to do other things first. And I think that that's a lesson. And over the years, I also feel that having a good manager makes an enormous difference in your career satisfaction. I've almost left Northern once because of a very bad manager, and fortunately that person ended up being reassigned to another position, which I feel was God's grace and goodness in the midst of that. But I've often talked about, even when I've been recruited by other companies, that having my manager is worth a lot of money to me. So if you want me to work for you, you've got to offer me a lot more money if you want me to work for some other manager than the one you've called me to. And so I feel God has blessed me with that as well. But these are just a few thoughts, I think, in terms of what it means to be called to your career. I hope that God will be continuing the work that I'm sure He's begun in all of you. College is such an exciting and exhilarating time. And you don't realize till you're out of college just how special it is in terms of the opportunities that you have to interact and grow in your faith, intellectually, personally, in so many different ways. It's a time when God can really work on you and in you in a very intense way that is much harder once you're in the work world, once you're raising a family, once you have all the other responsibilities and obligations that come out. And I just really pray that God would even now be preparing each of you for the work that He has in store for you, knowing that God calls us and desires us to know Him and to serve Him in our career. So those are my thoughts. Do you ever have time for questions or interaction, or should okay, yeah.
My question is along the lines of, you kind of stated in one of the lessons that God usually calls you to something you enjoy, but I was wondering if you think there are cases where God calls you to something you don't want to do, but it's, I guess, a question of whether you obey Him or you didn't enjoy something.
Yeah, no, I think there certainly are times when God will call you to things that you do not enjoy, just out of obedience. I don't think long-term He calls us to that in terms of our vocation or in terms of our careers. And there's many examples I can give of this. I've certainly had jobs over the years that I did not enjoy, that were assigned to me, but I believe that God wanted me to fulfill them, that somebody had to do them, and that I was being asked to do them. I think that can include many things. I mean, I have a 3-month-old at home right now. And I don't enjoy small babies. I know there are many people that do. But they're kind of unpredictable. You never know when they're going to cry, you never know when they're going to sleep, and they don't give back a lot. I mean, you're just mainly trying to figure out what they need and trying to give it to them. And sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, they're just going to cry. So I don't enjoy small babies particularly, but I know that God has called my wife and I to be parents, and we know that this is part of what it means to be a parent. So that's the kind of